Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at RG Podcast. How'd you like that intro, by the way?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you like the sparks?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's fire. I'm a scientist. I do like my fire. I
I
got to
was gonna
set up
say,
some hydrogen balloons the other week. Basically, got to blow things up in front of kids.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Well, first and foremost, before we get into that, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know it's a Friday night, and you're joining me tonight. But how are the COVID lockdowns in Australia? Are they pretty much all gone?
Yeah, they're pretty much all gone. We do have a lot of cases, though. I only recovered a couple of weeks ago from it.
Really?
I had it.
Really?
But yeah, they're not the funnest time. I guess it could have been worse, but yeah, I would recommend against it strongly. Probably got it from teaching. But anyway, that's enough about me. How are you going?
Yeah. Well, you know what? About 2 months ago, I had it the first night. Well, actually, I got it. I didn't even realize it. It was like the worst. I should say the mildest cold I've ever had. But what happened is then I had to go quarantine, and then it was actually quite cool because my school and my church sent me all kinds of snacks and food and stuff. So I basically got to sit around watching Netflix for a week. I'm like, this is like a vacation. So compared to the life I normally have with the wife, kids, work, ministry, it was a nice little. Yeah. So, how long did you have it for, by the way?
I kind of went in and out, where it got better and it got worse. Something in the background. But I couldn't stand up without getting out of breath for about 5-6 days.
Wow.
And then it kind of recovered reasonably quickly from there. Even when I went back to work about 8-9 days later, I was still not quite with it. But I'm fully back now, and I'm trying to get back into climbing and exercise. So yeah, not the funnest things, but
I heard that the lockdowns in Australia were especially bad.
They served a purpose, but we don't really have them anymore. There's fairly little restrictions. We have say masks on public transport and in healthcare places, and that's about it. Which I fully agree with those because got to slow the spread down. I said it. My experience with it was not very fun, and I was boosted, so it'll still happen. Well, this is not going to go away anytime soon, but I am not a biologist or immunologist or virologist or even a doctor. Almost.
You're almost a doctor. You're almost a doctor. That's good.
Wrong kind, though.
Right. What are you drinking, by the way?
I have a Woodford Reserve, just a little drink to have a couple of sips on a Friday night. So yeah, I'm going back to America for that one. I actually tried it when I was in America and then liked it, so I got a bottle here.
So can I ask you real quick? Is that an actual background? Are you in a?
No, it's a green screen.
It's a green screen. Okay, that'd be pretty cool because you're a doctor. Actually, did you get a chance to look over the questions I have for you?
Yes, I did have a chance, and I think hopefully I've got things to add for pretty much all of them. I'm just going to bring them back up. So I've got them. There they are.
Just real quick. I assume, I don't know, maybe this isn't right, but I assume that you are a sci-fi fan, like the genre.
I can be. There are certain sci-fi ones that I quite like. I was tempted to say Star Wars, though people say that's more technically science fantasy, although similar one. Though I do quite like my Star Trek. I wouldn't say which is better; they're too different, but I can get into it. So yeah, I've also done a couple of videos on science fiction movies on my channel too.
Let's see. Let's rattle off a few of these. Any chance you like Firefly?
I haven't actually seen it, so can't comment.
Wow. Okay. What about what's the newest one? That's was it Redwood, or what's the one that everyone is talking about on HBO? Is it Deadwood or no? Okay. What about the Alien franchise?
I'm still yet to see the earlier ones. I only saw bits of the later ones, but they're the worst ones to watch anyway. But yeah, I need to go back and look at it because it was a bit before my time. One of the ones does it count as science fiction where they do movies like, say, Austin Powers, and it's a bit more of a joke, but they have science fiction elements?
Oh, I don't really think so.
I'm now just thinking of the laser scene. Do you know the one I'm talking about? Yeah, well, how's it go? The fire, the laser. He uses quotes, doesn't he?
I can't remember. It's like probably like 20 years ago. I can't remember that part back. Okay, what about a Terminator?
I mean, anything with lasers will get my attention. So,
what about Terminator?
I have seen. Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's Terminator. It's almost a classic at this point.
That's my personal favorite series. And then last one, let's see. What about RoboCop?
I've seen the original one, and then I saw the remake, and I have to say the original I think was better. I'm a big fan of the original one.
I'll tell you what was cool. Sigourney Weaver.
With
Westworld, by the way. That's Westworld. That was the one. Sigourney Weaver, though, she was the lady from Aliens, and she was actually on a flight with my girlfriend. So I made it my girlfriend this Welcome to California sign, and I got her to sign it. So that was pretty cool. But okay, let's jump right into these. Yeah, she's very talented and very beautiful woman in person. You don't really get that from the the camera, but just one quick thing, because it's such a big deal right now. Any chance you're following the Johnny Depp?
Could not give a stuff. I'd stay away from that sort of thing. It's not. And I've been really, really busy. Although, in terms of movies, I do know someone. If you want to have a chat, one of the other people I've been on a few shows with. He's also a Buddhist too. If you wanted a different one, Jay.
I don't think that he interviewed me, and I think I'm pretty much banned from that channel. I do not think that guy is a very big fan of mine. So, godless scummer. This guy especially doesn't like me, Mr. Scummer. But okay, let's get into these questions. The first one is: should most people shy away from talks about physics or cosmology? Is it too complicated for your average person to understand? And I do want to give you some context on that, because I've probably interviewed about 40 atheists on this channel, and I've interviewed about 30 worldviews, okay? Buddhist, Muslim, all over the place. And one thing I really learned the importance of is like not talking about topics that I do not know about. And so, because I've got myself into some trouble, So I think it's best if you really don't know a lot about it, to not try to pretend like you do. So do you think that people do you think that people should try to avoid these talks, or do you think maybe by having the talks they can learn something? What are your thoughts?
I don't think the problem is talking about it. I think everyone should be able to talk about it. The difference, I think, is the platform and the level of understanding. You should never try and talk above your expertise, above your understanding. It's one thing to say, all right, this is what I believe, but I'm not an expert, or I have actually spent a bit of time studying it, or like, so in my case, I wouldn't directly refer to myself as a cosmologist, because those are people who directly study it, but I am still a physicist. So my understanding, whilst it is definitely going to be more than the average person, just based on the amount of time I've spent studying it formally, that still doesn't necessarily make me an expert, but it does give me enough that I can still talk about the basics. I can chat and we can go back and forward. So I think the big one I often see is that it can get really hard. So some people switch off, or people don't have enough of an understanding to be able to understand the nuances of some of the theories, or the bits where they're oversimplified for the general public, as much as general public can be a term that you can use, because it's very complicated. Because in science communication, one of the biggest factors that you need to consider, and it's one of the most difficult to consider, is who's your audience and what's your purpose, and that's not a straightforward question. So again, this is what I mean. I don't think we should shy away from the topics, but I think people should be very, very careful to not, or at least to make sure that they speak in line with the level that's appropriate to them. So if you wanted to state your opinion, you can do that, but it'd be very different if you spoke in a way where you came across as being very authoritative on the topic. If in fact you're not an expert. And so, yeah, which is why I'm very careful with the titles I pick and how I go around generally online, because I won't generally use the title atheist or even agnostic. I'll happily give my views on it, but I'm not an expert in philosophy or theology, but I like my science, and I've spent however many years studying it, and I still am. Hence the title. It gives away what I'm doing. So, yeah.
So I want to ask you another question. You had mentioned being an atheist, and a lot of Christians accuse atheists of not having like ethics. So do you have like a conscious?
Sorry, what was the accusation again? Sorry, the headphone glitched out.
That atheists don't have ethics. So do you have like a conscience in your mind? Like telling you right and wrong?
Yeah, as much as by that, if you mean that I have the ability to sit down and assess whether a situation situation is likely moral or not. Yes, right. Most people do. Sociopaths and other unfortunate mental things can get in the way of that. But unless you're those, I would say most people, regardless of what their beliefs are, have them. Our understanding of where they come from might be different, but yes.
But here's the question though, like, is it an Aussie accent when he talks to you? Like, is he like, "Oh, don't bloody do it, chap"? No? Okay, never mind. Going on to the next question. No, don't answer that. That was my attempt at humor. But okay, so the next one is an interesting one. But have you seen, speaking about sci-fi, have you ever seen a series called Sliders?
No, I know of it, but I haven't seen it. So I'm not the most movie fay person out there.
Jerry O'Connell, he was actually in Stand By Me. I'm a huge movie buff. I just interviewed a Josh Intner of, do you know Josh Intner? He does he's an atheist, but he also does some film. Anyway, the point being is that specific one, it's about like a multiverse, and I can't remember how they're able to do this, but there's like 8 of them, and they're able to jump between multiverses, and sometimes it's just like the tiniest thing that is different, and that little tiny thing might, you need a storyline plot for an hour, so it could be something that winds up being really huge, and sometimes it's just like I remember one of them was like in this other multiverse that like science and like math or like the sports that everybody wants to go see. They go and see like math bulls or whatever. But who
did you say was in that again?
Jerry O'Connell. He was in Stand By Me. He was married to Rebecca Romaine Stamos. But anyway,
why do I have a weird thing in my head that he was a Buddhist? Is that true?
I have no idea. But anyway, with a multiverse, do you think that would be more likely to prove a God or a not God? If we were to find out that's true.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing is that multiverse is not necessarily one set. If we find it, this is exactly what it is. There's different sides to it. So I could probably turn the question back to you and get a similar answer. If, say, tomorrow we prove that there was a multiverse and that there were multiple universes, or at least multiple instantations of what we would consider a universe anyway, because the question does get quite complicated, would that stop you being a Christian? Because I don't think it would stop a lot of some of my fellow scientists who are religious.
No, I think that would widen my appreciation of God, because it would seem it doesn't make logical sense for me as a Christian to think God has all eternity, an infinite amount of time and space, and he's going to judge you on like 30 or 40 or 100 years of your life, whenever so much of your life, the circumstances, like where you're born, what gender you are, maybe even your orientation, a lot of these things are like, what family you're born into. You don't get to decide any of that. You don't get to decide if you're born into a toxic family or healthy family that's going to nurture you. So to think that you could go through multiple multiverses,
God decide that?
But that just seems to make more. It would seem, if I'm a Christian, I'm being honest, and I were to find that out, it would seem that would be something that's more in line with the nature of God, in a rough estimation on my part.
For me, it wouldn't change my answer to the question, and I said that it's not my area. It would be cool that we found that, as most things would be, but that's the thing that I like about science, is that you're not trying to reach a goal. You're just trying to find out what's out there, and whether you find that you should always be open to the truth. But I gotta be careful how I use the word truth, because some people, when they say, you gotta learn the truth, it's a little weird. But in terms of finding out what reality is like, well, then we do it. My only thing with the God belief, and I mean, it's kind of my limited opinion, is that if that God interacts with reality, then we should be able to detect that. I don't know what your thoughts on that. Sorry, I think you're cutting out a bit.
Well, am I?
I'm not sure if that's my end or yours. Sorry.
I can hear you fine. Are you cutting? Am I roboting?
I can hear you now. Yeah. Oh, good.
Okay. It's going cyborg. Okay, so to answer this guy's question real quick, Viriliton, whatever.
Virillion?
Yeah, well, a couple of things is that a lot of science fiction is actually based on, science concepts. So, for example, Isaac Asimov, that was a really big thing that in his writings, was that he was writing about things like that could potentially happen. For instance, AI, that maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago might have seemed absolutely impossible, but, it's starting to become more of a reality right now. Anyway, so talking about science fiction, it's interesting to talk about, but I do want to say that, so you talked about God interacting. I have experienced him interacting myself. So why he doesn't do that to more people boggles my mind, because I was an atheist myself, and 8 years ago, 5/16, which in 10 days will be 8 years, like God spoke to me, and I became a Christian as a result of that. But that causes a huge level of cognitive dissonance on my part, because I don't know why God doesn't speak to other people, and I don't know why he doesn't do things like just maybe put a lightning bolt in Kim Jong-un. I live in South Korea, so the fact that my daughter can't go visit North Korea and see the places that her ancestors roamed, it's a huge slap in the face to me, and I work towards bringing attention to the North Korean problem up there. But I mean, if I could switch God talking to me and God putting a lightning bolt in Putin, I would choose that any day of the week. But on the other hand, I could just tell you what I've experienced. So whether or not it's completely logical or it's fair, that's what I've experienced. So in my opinion, God definitely does interact.
So what I'm referring to here is more of something to be detected the scientific method. Because generally speaking, I'd probably fall under as a methodological naturalist. But I'm a little more open in that if elements of the supernatural exist, and I'm open to that possibility if they can be demonstrated, but not as in a personal experience, but a demonstration that's independent. that's where I'm getting to, then I think we should be able to detect it with the scientific method. And I say with the scientific method and not science as some entity. It's more of the process by which we go about it. So when I say that he should be detectable, I believe that. And again, I'm opening to the fact that I could be wrong and that I've misinterpreted it, or someone can come along and show me that. But I'm more referring to a level of almost experimentation where it can be independent, because that's the kind of level you need to be at, because we are humans and we can always be wrong.
Any chance this Virillion guy person?
Sorry, you're cutting out again. I think it's just the connection.
Do you know this Virillion person?
Let me see. Doesn't ring any bells.
Person. Yeah, well, really, if you're interested in having a full conversation, I'd love to talk to you. Right now, I'm interviewing a band that I can't really pay attention to both. But okay, here we go. Next question is: you had explained something about, I believe you called it. No, it wasn't a big crunch. You didn't call it a big crunch, but you referred to it something some other way.
We're talking about the big crunch then.
No, but you weren't calling it a crunch. I was just listening to our talk again because I wanted to freshen up on some of the things you're talking about, but I should have written that down. But what is there another word that you use for that, for big crunch or big something else? No.
So the big crunch is more to do with the end of the universe. It's one of multiple hypotheses of how it will end. And it's basically where the universe kind of recompresses it, basically.
Just crunches. In and
out? Well, it kind of falls into the big bounce, which is kind of new.
Oh, the big bounce. Sorry, that was the big bounce.
Yeah. That's the one I've mentioned. That one there has it where the universe itself basically repeats. It's on a repeat, but when it kind of crunches, we're not talking like the whole thing reverses, goes back to the exact same state and repeats. It's not that simple. The problem that we have with the origins of the universe with cosmology is how far back we can see. And once we get to within the Planck time of the start of the universe, the physics as we know it breaks down. We cannot get further back than that. Our current understanding. One day we might, but at this stage, nobody can say what happened before that. And so what people are trying to do is propose models that can get us past that. See if we can increase our understanding to the point where we can explain what happens on these scales, as well as also out there, because there's still questions. As much as we understand about the universe, as much as we can be sure about certain things that have happened, there's always going to be more work that we need to do. And that excites me. I always want to have the answers. And so the question of what happened at the beginning of time may not be a sensical question. It may make no sense.
So I'm going to go to another movie again, but any chance you've ever seen K-Pax?
No, sorry. I think you drop out.
Okay, I'm sorry. Back. K-Pax. Any chance you've ever seen K-Pax?
No, I haven't.
Kevin Spacey. Sorry. Okay, so Kevin Spacey plays an alien, and at the end, I don't want to give away too many spoilers here, but he basically says that the universe is going to do like a big crunch and just repeat back and forth over and over and over again. And basically he tells the audience or whatever to live the best life that you can live right now, because you're going to keep living these same mistakes over and over and over again.
But that's not, that's what I'm saying. It's more complicated than the universe going back to its original state. It's not a repetition, and that we're not going to exist again, or at least as far as we can tell, we have no reason to suspect we would. It's more of that the universe itself reverts back to an original, like it goes back to an early state, but it may start again and the way it starts may not be the same. Some of the constants may be different. It's really confusing, and that's the thing, is that there are different models to try and explain this. And so one of the things that comes up a lot in science is that in the general population, a problem is either solved and we know it, or we have no idea. But in science, it's not like that. There is a lot of, it's like a jigsaw, and you can put some of the pieces, and you might have some missing, and it's about how clear the image is. And even early on, you can have different ideas about what the image does. And from some pieces, you can guess the shape of others. So dark matter is a good one in that we may not know what it is, but we know that if it falls under this category and behaves like this, then it should be this. If it's this, it then should behave like this. So there's actual several very distinct bins that it can be put in, and it's trying to figure out which one it fits in and how would we test each one. It's not like, oh, we have no idea and we're sitting back. We actually have some idea. We just haven't got to the point of being able to demonstrate which one is correct.
That's an interesting way to. Good. Yeah, for those who can't see, there's a lot of hating going on here. I can't believe that someone is willing to talk to Isaiah. He's worse than Antangelo, misspelled then. But just so you know, Ben, I appreciate. No, you're not. I'm sorry, you're not Ben. Sorry, what is your name?
Matt.
Or you're Dan. Sorry, Matt. I'm so sorry. I confused you with student doctor. Anyway, I really do appreciate this, because there's a lot of people out there who just would prefer to throw dirt onto each other and would prefer to gaslight and to, I mean, just guys, look at this world right now. We're on this planet together, and we have, we have some horrific things going on in the Ukraine. We still have this virus that's still killing people, and we're on this planet together here. So let's try to show a little bit of charity. But I do want to get to the next question. Have a shot for me, by the way, doctor. But okay, here we go. Let's go to the next one. Why do you think that most Christians deny obvious facts about the cosmos? That's kind of a loaded question, but what are your thoughts on that one?
Sorry, I missed that one.
That's a Why do you?
Sorry, audio's been a little funny. That's all.
Why do you think that most Christians deny obvious facts of the cosmos? Oh, don't tell me you actually have people there who are trolling me right now. Is there people there who are actually with you?
With me?
Yeah, like off screen trolling.
No, sorry. I just have two screens. I'm trying to monitor the chat because I got YouTube on the right, and I got you in front of me. So that's why I'm.
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah, I do that for all of them. Sorry, I was used to that.
No problem.
Although because on that question, it kind of reminds me of something that I think is pretty cool. Where's the mental blank? Give me a second. I'll get it in a moment.
I can talk on that if you want to take a moment. Yeah, I'll just say this.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll just say this. There's obviously multiple different ways to interpret Genesis, literally and not literally. But one of the things I would tell someone is that I do see it more of like allegorical. But even if I were just to read it completely and utterly, like literally, one thing that I would know from the rest of the Bible is that like Adam and Eve weren't created to die. So it could be the case that they lived a billion years, in the Garden of Eden or whatever. And then they didn't start getting older until the time that they ate this apple or fruit, whatever it is. So there's multiple ways to interpret it, but I would never, I'm serious. I would never read that book and say the earth is 6,000 years old. That's just something I would never do, Like, I don't even know. It doesn't even say it. What was that?
I said that's a start from a scientific point of view, because it's my gripe is not with people who are religious, and never will be. My gripe is only with pseudoscience and people who want to misrepresent or deliberately not understand science, and that's when I have a problem. So yeah, I strongly disagree with young earthers, but it's but yeah, I got it because it's like all this science that I don't understand, yet I do it as a job 5 days a week. It's it's really, really nice sentiment because it's like, even after all the time I've spent exploring and flying through the universe, metaphorically that is. I've never actually been on a rocket. It'd be cool to be.
We are definitely flying through the universe, though.
Man. I mean, the world is, but you know what I mean. To go outside of our thin little biosphere on here. And yet there is a lot that I understand. The more you learn, kind of the more you realize you don't know. And that's why I'm so careful the way I word things, because I've spent so long. It's like, oh, I'm going to get something wrong. It terrifies me about that. But then again, I have my areas. I mean, you asked me about lasers. I'll talk for hours on how they operate. Wow. But again, I'd probably get into detail that most people, it doesn't interest them. And that's the thing. I don't expect everyone to understand everything fully about science. You don't need to. The problem is when people deliberately
misrepresent
things, and that's where I kind of have my gripe. And you can, and I have watched videos. I've done reacts to videos where not as much on my channel, but I have done it particularly on other channels where I've basically called the other person a liar because there's almost no way they'd be in their position and say what they did.
Right.
And that's when I have the issue.
Do you think that the guy Kent Hovind is like a bad faith actor in the science community? I tend to believe that because it seems like you either have to deny or just totally like put your face in the sand, to where it's like, at what point are you really even taking like science seriously?
Oh, you got an Android.
An Android? Yeah, my alarm.
Yeah, the alarm. It's an Android.
Yeah. Well, I live in South Korea, so I got to support South Korea. It's a Samsung. But yeah, would you see people like Kenneth Hovind as a bad faith actor in the science community?
I wouldn't even say he's part of the science community. He's definitely a bad faith actor. I have no respect for him or his ilk. As much as say I wouldn't mind having a conversation just to see what they're like, but I think I know what they're going to be like. But yeah.
He does have some good zingers, I will say that. He has some good zingers.
Good what?
Zingers, like some good like punchlines, some good one-liners.
Oh, good zingers. No. Yeah, I don't.
Yes, I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. Like, okay, the guy might be an idiot or whatever, but he has some, and maybe he doesn't come up with them. Maybe he has like people who are helping him come up with some zingers. I think no, funny.
I'm saying I don't agree that they're good zingers. That's my thing.
Okay,
but that's
yeah. You know what?
You got an example of one?
Let's see. I'm not a fan of him by any stretch of the imagination, but I have seen some talks where he does throw out some things, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny. So I don't know how to say this. Okay, hold on. Let me start off here. I'm gonna give you a little riddle and see if you can answer it. Okay. So I have 2 jugs. Okay. One of them is 3 gallons, and the other one is 5 gallons. Okay. So I have to measure out exactly 4 gallons. Given those 2, I have a 3 and a 5, but I need to measure out 4. Can you?
Well, you do it in 2 lots of 2, which you can do by filling the 5 and then pouring it into the 3. And when you get to the 3, you have 2 left in the 5.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then
you could do
twice.
Okay, so you could do that. So that would take 4 times? But there's so that's true. So that's true. So here's another way you could do it: is you could fill up the 3, pour it into the 5, then fill up the 3 again, and then pour 2 out, and so there'll be 1 remaining. Then you pour out all of the 5, and then you pour in the 1, and then you fill up the 3 again. So, but anyway, there is this, and I don't know how to say it right now, but it's like the Einstein effect. Have you ever heard of that before? I'm gonna type it up right here. It's
Yeah, I'll have a look.
Ingelung. Hold on, I'm gonna put
I'm
it
not
right in here.
recognizing that pronunciation, or it doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, Godless Scummer. That was actually from Die Hard 3.
And
But the point of
let me
that was from Die Hard 3.
check something.
But so it's some German name. But the point being is that the guy who created this the science project or whatever, the psychology test, was that he had a bunch of series to like where you would need to do these things on multiple steps to try to do, like, you have 3 different jugs and you're trying to fill up and pour out, right? And so as he's making these progressively harder, he abruptly goes back to making them easier, right? But people get so trained to a certain way of thinking that they either can't solve it or they'll make it a lot more complicated than it really should be. So do you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah. I know you overthink things, and one of the things in science is problem solving, which a lot of the time is, all right, when is it time to go back to the basics, start from scratch, keep it simple and keep going? But it's not an easy skill to get, and a lot of people never learn it, whether it's through science or whatever. They just that problem solving, the ability to assess the universe. They kind of walk around about as deluded as Dr. Evil, I would say.
Yeah. By the way, that's my the atheist name. They've been calling me Dr. Evil. I also go by Mr. Clean because I got the earrings here, so to prove that one. But you know,
I didn't know that one, but I do like the head you shave it. It's a nice thing.
This is God. This is God punishing me for probably all the sins I've done. So isn't that unfair? You're the atheist. You have all your beautiful black hair. So anyway, I do want to ask you another question. This isn't on the questions I sent you, but do you think like people could take the scientific method and just apply it in their lives daily? And I will say this: there is a guy who teaches a course who actually turned his life into like a video game. So he had like power-ups and points and demerits and all kinds of things like that. He got really organized with his life. But do you think that it's that we could take like the scientific method and apply it to things like at your job or, you know, school or relationships? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's why I think it's so important to teach. I think you can, because the basics of it is how to figure out what reality looks like, essentially, and a better understanding of the world around us is never going to hurt.
Mm-hmm. So definitely yes. So what do you think?
I'd say yes, but I want to caveat that with, whilst it's important that, well, whilst it's definitely possible to use, there's different levels. So using the extent of, say, like a scientist who is in a lab trying to find out new fundamental things or trying to develop a new drug, it's going to be a very different level from what you would say expect from a high school student. Because I teach high school amongst, you know, early university as well.
Oh, wow, you didn't tell me that. I didn't know that.
Not enough hours in the day. I actually got to do a science show for some high school students the other week and setting off explosions and showing more.
Tell me about that, please. You got to tell me about
liquid nitrogen, jumping rings, all sorts of those things with it. But part of that is also, again, what's your audience? What do you want them to get out of it? And I want them to kind of have some understanding of the scientific method and kind of apply that critical thinking about, all right, how do we test? When I see something or someone presents me with information, how do I assess it to get the best model of reality around it that I can? And again, for someone who's fairly young, I'm going to expect a very different level from, say, my supervisor who's had decades of experience in a scientific context. And so going back to the high school one, for me at that level, or at least for that show specifically, the main goal there was generating interest, not necessarily teaching them to be the best scientists possible, because you can't do that if they're not interested. It's different levels.
Right. That totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
But but the basics of forming a hypothesis and then, or at least forming what you think is going on, they're like, okay, this is what I think it is. This is what I think this experience tells me. But then taking the next step and going, okay, how do I check that my interpretation is correct? Is the difficult bit, but it is the most important.
It is the most. So, any chance you've ever seen the? Okay, let's please tell me you've seen the Big Bang Theory, the show.
Yes, I have.
So you know Sheldon, and by the way, just for the reference, I'm probably sure you know plenty of Sheldons in real life, because my best friend, who I told you is a physicist and was the best man at my wedding. He's a totally like socially awkward, like total too smart for their own good, like Sheldon type, who's constantly like putting people down unintentionally. But anyway, they tap him to go talk about science to try to recruit like young women. And he starts talking about Bazinga. He starts talking about Madame Curie and about how she died of like radiation poisoning. And he's talking about like all these horrible side effects. He's like, all right, well, you guys have a nice day. And he just walks out. It's one of the funniest scenes in that whole show I saw. But there's another video that I saw, which is very interesting, which is this lady explains things at 5 different levels. Like one, the way she would explain gravity to like a 5-year-old, or to like someone in middle school and high school, and then to like a college level. Any chance you've ever seen those?
I'm familiar with those. And it is very interesting because I at least cover some of those levels in what I have to do on, I wouldn't say it's not a daily basis, but possibly weekly basis that I would have to do, where I have to explain things on different levels. And so it's a useful skill to have in more than just science. And this is what I mean. I don't expect everybody to be a scientist. I don't expect everyone to be fully invested or interested in every science finding out there. You can't do it. It's not reasonable. I'm more talking about just being critical, but it's still useful to make people aware and to train them in science.
So I will tell you this. In high school, I remember taking some like chemistry and stuff classes, some really basic science stuff. But do you think that those classes, and I don't know, maybe it's a totally different down under in Australia, but maybe should they be a little bit more intense, or maybe starting from an earlier age? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Australia doesn't do a terrible job. It depends, because it's not an easy question, and I'm not involved with the lowest end. It's kind of a balance, because when they're too young, it's hard. You don't want to push them too much, because then you'll end up pushing people away. But on the other hand, you don't want to neglect it. Not sure where that balance is. It's not an easy one, but I would say the critical thinking, the skills that come with it are important regardless. But in terms of everybody needing to say no physics, no, that's optional. If you're interested, learn physics. If you're not, don't. But if you don't bother learning physics, then yeah, you shouldn't go out there and pretend that you know what you're talking about in physics topics. As I shouldn't go out there and talk in areas that I'm not an expert in.
That's any chance you've ever seen? I think there's a lot of really good ones that come out, but like little small science kits where kids can learn,
I've seen them. Oh, there was one that was released, it was just decades ago. Was it 50s or 60s or something? That was like a little mini radiation kit for kids. And
oh my god.
He's pretty safe. Any chance? But
that sounds bad. Any chance you've ever seen Eureka?
No.
Where like the sheriff, he lives in this town where like everybody's a scientist, and they're always like doing some really crazy science stuff. Like one of the kids builds like a black hole, or he builds like a sun, like a nuclear fission inside of his house, and then it causes all these problems. And this guy doesn't know anything about science, but he has to come in and fix all these problems. It's actually kind of like a science fiction / like dark comedy, because it's pretty dang funny, some of the stuff going on. But I do want to ask you a question. This is kind of a theological and cosmological question combined, but why is it that Australian people, and it might have to do with the equator or whatever, but why is it that they never pronounce the letter R? Like it's always an A, like teacher. No? Okay.
It's the Oz effect.
The Oz?
The Oz effect, yeah. So I just got...
Right, because...
excuse me.
Isn't it like...
It's... Yeah, we don't even say the letter R when we say the letter R.
That is funny. That is funny. All right. Well, I think I got like 2 more questions for you.
And I do remember what they are. Plus, you've also put them up for me, which makes things.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Actually, I didn't even tell you this because the one about the Christians one, it did have a second part to it. But do you think that is dangerous for like your average person to be? Well, obviously, right now, like with the anti-vaccine and stuff, that's obviously caused some serious problems right now. So that's kind of self-answering. But what are some of the other potential consequences you think of being just ignorant about science?
Well, see, I don't like the use specifically of, say, like Christians or any group. My problem is just anti-science in general, because as far as I see it, the scientific method is our best way of understanding the world around us. And so if you're being anti-scientific, you're going to have a flawed understanding of reality, which can always harm no matter what form it comes in. So yeah, I think it's quite a big question. I don't think we have the time to go into every bit, but yeah, I always encourage good science. And then add one more question, because I still got a few more minutes, but you want to hit the last one?
Yeah, well, what I was going to... Oh, go ahead.
Because I quite like that one. I think there's a couple of good... I think one point in there that I think is quite good, or at least hopefully is interesting to people. I guess we're going to find out.
Well, I'll say this, that, I think Aussie Oz, look at this. The Self-Loving Liar is streaming. Wow, a lot of hate. But okay, so I will say this, that there is maybe one of the dangerous things is just not to see the beauty of what's really out there, what's going on, because there's some majestic things that are happening in the universe all around us at the quantum level, maybe in other galaxies that we can maybe look into. I had the opportunity to go to this. They were going out in the desert, and they had this telescope that was so strong, like you can't even focus it on the moon. The moon would be like totally out of totally blurry. So you have to put it like on really distant galaxies, and they were actually projecting it up onto like on a TV. And so, I mean, that's amazing. I think I told you last time I have some astronomy tattoos on me, because I think it is so beautiful to, I mean, obviously I would take it in another direction, because I would attribute that to God, but you would contribute it to just naturalism or whatever. But still, just to fail to see that beauty, I think is a real pity. It's a real shame. So let's see, we have one more. What are the biggest misconceptions about the Big Bang model that both atheists and Christians both believe? And I will say this, maybe you can tell me if this is accurate, because I do watch some of those physics videos. And the way that the guy was explaining was that he said, we tend to think of like the everything like shooting out when we think of like the bang, because we think of like a bomb, right? But he was saying a better way to think of it would be, think of like the universe, just the space between everything expanding. So do you think that's is that an accurate way to say it? Like the space is expanding between everything?
It's so when they talk about the expanding universe, it's the fact that the space between the matter, like the space between the matter, is expanding. But and again, this time I don't like putting like labels on people's understanding like as broad as atheist or Christian, because I don't think it's just that. I think it's more general that one of the big misconceptions with specifically the Big Bang is that it does not describe the start of the universe, does not describe the origin of the universe. It's the model that describes the expansion once we have the universe. And so, as I said, we don't go back further than the Planck time after the initial state, and then it's about the expansion from there. So when I'm talking to people about Big Bang cosmology, it tends to be more about the progression from there. And that's only because a lot of people seem to expect the Big Bang to describe why the universe is here or how it's here. And whilst that definitely falls under cosmology, not necessarily the Big Bang, although things get quite nuanced and it's a bit hard. But that's why there's other models out there that have been proposed. Like the multiverse would not overrule Big Bang. And the bouncing cosmos may not necessarily overrule the Big Bang, in that it may describe the universe on a longer time scale or on an oscillating time scale, but that expansion that we normally think of as the Big Bang is there. So I think it's not, I mean, beyond that and beyond what people expect of it, generally it's not too bad. It's specific. I don't get the reference, but
it just goes to show you the people in this community, though. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to have a civil and honest conversation with you, and people would rather sow dissension and bad will in the universe. And I don't really get it, but okay.
It's just a lot of fun to me. It's that sticks and stones may break my bones, but chains and whips excite me. I prefer that ending to it than the other one.
Well, I was going to say that's probably one of the biggest lies ever, that words will never hurt. I mean, I'll tell you this, I suffered some physical and verbal abuse by the hands of a mother with a PTSD. He was a Vietnam veteran. And I could tell you some of the stuff that she said to me stayed inside of me a lot longer than the physical violence. So I don't really agree with that.
Pretty horrible. But my thing is not against the fact that words can't be offensive. It's more about the level and about how close those people are to you, the closer they are. And of course, there's different levels. There's calling someone an idiot or saying that idea is idiotic is very differently from repeatedly abusing someone. Those are different, and they're not even on the same level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a balance of that. And sometimes, yes, it can be about just, you just need to be a little tougher. And other times it's like, no, that's serious. We need to stop that. And for the most part, if we want to have, a bit of a joke in a YouTube comment, or people want to go a little overboard, it's generally not that bad. At the end of the day, you got a mute button. But again, someone who's close to you or someone who does that, and it also depends what the other person is saying. Let's say, you have, we go back in time and you're now in, say, the US during World War II. They produced some movies and some songs that were incredibly offensive to the Germans and the Japanese. There's one that was called, we got it from 1941, the end of December. If that gives you an idea about the mentality, called We Gotta Slap the Dirty Little Jap. It's incredibly offensive.
Oh my God.
Context. And again, it's like, was that the worst thing to say? Is that what you should be worrying about at the time? But yeah, and it's always a balance. And some of the people that you might see in the chat, I'm sure if you wanted to reach out to them and have it, they'd probably be more willing than you'd expect. It might push back on some ideas, but for the most part, it's a bit of an Aussie thing, but someone could tell me to piss off and they're my best mate. I wouldn't care.
They would most likely call you the C word, because I've known enough Aussies to know that they throw that word around like it's a frisbee, right? I'm sorry, like it's a boomerang, right? Can you throw a boomerang, by the way?
Boomerangs are not meant to come back, by the way. They don't come back. They're not meant. The hunting ones were not meant to come back. The ones that come back are like a sports/ceremonial version. Because you don't. The way you have to throw them is not easy for. It's not useful for hunting. So, but yeah. Although talking about the crowd, you mentioned Jay. I reckon if you wanted to chat with him about Buddhism again, you should give him another shot, because he's actually very nice and he loves movies. He'd probably get all your references, unlike me sitting here not knowing any of them.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. So, well, yeah, there's some there's probably one of the reasons why some of these people are mad at me, because I don't know. My cousin has this concept of being an asshole, which is you ask a question and then you get you get angry at the people's answer. So I have a brother, and he was going like he had gotten a ticket for like not wearing a seatbelt by this police officer. And this is after I've done like a lot of traveling like around the world and seen some really impoverished places and seen North Korea firsthand, So he goes to court and he's like traumatized by this event, and he thinks it's the worst thing. And he asked me, he's like, "Oh, what do you think about this, Isaiah?" And I'm like, "Oh, Roscoe, I think compared to some of the other stuff that's going on in the universe, some of the other injustices and abuses of human rights, I'm like, it's just pretty irrelevant." And he got so furious that I wasn't coming to his aid, but I was like, he got like a $70 ticket or whatever. So it's like, I got asked a question amongst these people and I answered it, and then they get furious at me. So that's what this is why I give you the questions in advance, because I don't want to like corner you into an area where I'm trying to get you in a gotcha question or trying to push you. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people will do that in a very dishonest way, and that's not what I try to do. But go ahead.
I do have a question on that. Hopefully it can be a quick one, because I'll have to go in a moment, because I think I got to go look after the dog. But
you're probably drunk.
But if someone asks a question that is offensive or it's rude or it shows a severe lack of understanding, and someone responds by calling that person an idiot, is that wrong?
You know what? One of my co-hosts, I've recently had a talk about this, because maybe it's best I just not answer some questions. Like, my sister's a really big politician in California, and I'll tell you this: to be a politician, you got to be really good at not answering questions that people ask you. So dodging them or going around. And I mean, I'm kind of dodging the one you're saying, but the question that you asked, but maybe that's a way to just go about, because I mean, I'm not out here to try to offend people or try to hurt people. So maybe if I am asked something and I understand that it could potentially trigger or hurt somebody, just to say, you know what, that's just not an area I would like to discuss. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it gives us enough for now. I do have to say,
Any last thoughts?
Have to wrap up in a moment, because I'll have to jump off.
Yeah.
But
any last thoughts?
No, I think I've said everything I need to for now, and I'd probably end up opening a whole new can of worms, knowing my ability to stay on topic. So just real quick, then I'll give you the 5 nonprofits that we support, and then you could just pick one. We'll make a donation on your name. But one's a North Korean refugee program here in South Korea. One is a Nazi deconversion, which Jeff Scoop has helped out a lot of people deconverting. Anti-LGBT bullying campaign. And let's see, single mothers here in South Korea. And then a Jewish-Palestinian peace organization. So any of those interest you? You can either do the refugees or the peace organization. I think at the moment those are relevant to global topics. I hate this sort of picking because it's like
you could pick two because I can't really send you out a Starbucks card.
Then let's go those.
I normally send out I normally send out a Starbucks card, but not sure if actually I did send out a $25 Starbucks card to someone in Australia, and it just got lost in the Ethernet because he couldn't use it for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because it's purchased in America. But that being said, I want to thank you for joining me today. You're a great bloke. You're a great lad. And everyone else who's in the comment section, thank you for feeding the algorithm monster. Really appreciate that. And thank you for your feedback. And we're going to leave you with this outro. And
can I give my kind of a catch line at the end?
Yeah, please. Or
so I do my usual
social media. Yeah, social media.
Oh no. That's fine. People can find me because if you type,
I'll link it here.
Yeah, if you type that into YouTube. No, I was just gonna say, although we've come to the end of the road, remember, I'm almost a doctor. Until next time, be like a proton and stay positive.
That's hilarious. That's great. All right. All right, well, I'm going to leave you with this outro. And yeah, check us out at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, having conversations like this with respect, empathy, humility, knowing that we don't have all the answers, but we're trying to help out each other out on this journey as we're going through space into the endless vastness of space. We're all on this planet together for here and now. So let's try to help out each other while we're here. So here we go.